Hey everyone, I'm Alex, and welcome to The Roasted Mind, the show where we enjoy some coffee, have a conversation about self-help, personal interests, and growth, and express the thoughts that can be a bit harder to discuss. So, have a seat, grab a cup of coffee, let's talk. Happy Saturday once again, everybody. Welcome back to The Roasted Mind, the podcast where we talk about self-help, personal interests, growth, kind of have those conversations that we want to talk about with ourselves, with other people, but it's really hard to have. It's a lot easier to have over a cup of coffee, so thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to be talking about a dark roast. Dark roasts are typically really bitter. They're actually one of my least ways of enjoying coffee. I ordered one from Pete's because in my fridge, I only enjoy light roasts and medium roasts, mostly light. So I only have those on hand. And I know I said fridge, but I actually put my beans in the freezer whole before I grind them, just to kind of conserve their flavor, their freshness. So I figured out, well, hey, look, I live right across the street from a Pete's, so let me just stop there, see if they have a dark roast, and they did. This is just a drip brew coffee, so it's not particularly my favorite way of brewing coffee. That doesn't mean it's any bad, it's just my personal taste, as well as dark roasts are actually not my favorite way. They are bitter to me. They don't really have that kind of flavor that I look for when I drink a cup of coffee. This is kind of akin to your diner coffee. This is kind of akin to if you work in, like, let's say a hospital or somewhere that they have like on-hand coffee that they just brew just to kind of get the workers energized for their shift. This is that taste, that kind of really bitter, pungent, really like smacks your tongue, kind of hits you across the face kind of taste. And some people look for that in coffee. Some people really do, but I don't particularly do look in that for coffee. Dark roasts are really interesting because it's what the name implies, right? They are darkly roasted. They are roasted for a longer amount of time than a light or a medium roast, to the point where cracks on the beans start to surface and the oils from the inside kind of start to come out and become on the surface of the bean, and that actually adds to that flavor. And a lot of people will tell you that dark roast coffee is rich. It's extremely rich, and that it has these kind of deeper and sweeter notes. But you really have to enjoy it. That has to be your preference. Some people enjoy decaf. Some people enjoy medium roast. Like I said, I enjoy lighter roast. So this kind of darker roast that I'm drinking here isn't particularly my favorite, but it's coffee nonetheless. And I do enjoy a good cup of coffee. Pete's does make a good one, so hey, I'll drink it anyways. Today I'm going to talk about losing friends. Kind of that falling out in a way that you have with people that really do matter to you or did matter to you. But something happens along the lines and it becomes really hard to kind of keep them as a friend. I vaguely had this experience happen to me at the beginning of the year. I had a friend that was really close to me, a friend that we would really kind of do a lot together, talk every day and do a lot of these friendly things together, but something happened and we really had a falling out. It became to the point where we would talk every day to not talking at all with each other. We would I don't even know, like send Instagram posts or something to each other, and we just stopped. And the worst part about that is when you lose a friend like that, it sucks because you kind of always feel like you're in constant competition with them, right? It always feels like you're always trying to one up them, get the better hand. It feels like, well, I can do better than them. They left me, they did me wrong, or maybe you did them wrong, or whatever it is. They didn't give me a second chance, or you didn't give them a second chance. And you start to think, well, this is my chance to show them and to show everybody else who knows us that I'm going to do better than them, that I have my life together, that I'm starting to really work my way up the ladder of personal growth, or maybe it's career or professional, but not really for yourself. You really start to do it because you are doing it for them, right? Then you start to compare. and you start to contrast, and you always kind of start to one up them, and you always in your mind you're thinking, well, what are they doing, what's going on here, how can I be better than them in any way? They could be living their own life, they could not even bat an eye to what you're doing, but that doesn't matter to you, because to you, you feel like, well, everybody wants to compare and contrast me and this person because they know that we had a falling out, so I'm going to do my absolute best to be better than them. And it can even be subconscious. You don't even have to do this competition outright by saying, well, now I'm in a competition, because you can just ask. You can ask a mutual friend, what are they up to? What are they doing now? How have they been? And when you kind of establish that baseline, or get an update on your friend, and you start to realize, well, wow, they're doing these things. They just said that they're reading a book, or they're going to the gym more, or maybe they have this interview lined up or something along those lines. And then that's when you start to make it a competition subconsciously, because you don't realize what you're doing is finding things to grab onto, to kind of latch on and make it a competition. There's something so bitter about this rivalry that you make up for yourself with this lost friend. And social media makes it even worse. Social media makes it even worse because then you start to post things that you don't typically post, because you feel like, well, I want everybody to see that I'm doing better. Or maybe you start to look at this person's page and you want to get updates, or you look at somebody else who's a friend of them who's posting them, and you really do kind of feel like you're not good enough. So you continue to push and you push and you push to get better than them. But at the end of the day, what does it matter, right? Because you're not friends anymore. What is there to compare to? That's the worst part about losing a friend, is it's so hard to just kind of isolate yourself from them, especially when you've spent so long with them. It's so hard to just kind of be your own person after a while. And this kind of want to hear from other people how this person is doing is natural. I mean, you do it all the time from friends, family, things along those lines. But now that you're doing it with somebody that you used to look up to, somebody that you used to kind of stand next to, it's extremely difficult to find out, or rather not find out, but to let it go, right? It's for some reason incredibly hard to just let go and let them do their thing while you do your own thing. Because then it doesn't become a journey of self-help. It doesn't become things that you're doing for yourself. These become things that you're doing in contrast to the other person. These become things that you really hate to see yourself do, but you do them because the other person's not doing them. You do them because maybe they are doing them and you know you can do better, or you feel like you can do better, or you feel like how they're approaching it is stupid, and you just kind of want to show everybody else that you can do it better. But it's not really always about being better. It's about just being yourself, being unique. But you can't do that when you keep comparing and contrasting. Some people will tell you that losing a friend like this is incredibly rich. It is a good experience. This is an experience that it's isolating, and that isolating nature of it kind of makes it the best part of it. It makes it feel like now you actually have room to grow. Now you actually have this time to really focus on yourself, no matter how hard it is, no matter what you're doing. Some people enjoy a smaller circle. Some people enjoy that time that they can really give to the people who really matter to them. And that richness in a smaller circle, the richness in the loss of a friend, just like the richness in a dark roast cup of coffee, is sweet. It's bold. It's something that people tend to look for. And that's an incredibly unique approach. And that's something that I could never do. I value my small circle. I have a very small circle of some incredibly close friends that they're basically my brothers and sisters. They're my family. But on the other hand, I have a lot of friends that, yeah, I consider friends. Some I consider acquaintances, but I'm not isolating them, and I'm not kind of cutting them off because of my smaller circle. I enjoy a small circle. I enjoy having those people I can trust, because that's what they are. These are people I can really trust and have these coffee talks with, that I can say, hey, let's go to Bungalow, or let's go to the Golden Fog when it was still here, and let's go grab a cup of coffee and talk. Those are really the only people that I can do it with, are those smaller circles, and I appreciate them so much. But I never really found richness in only keeping a small circle. I feel like there's a lot that you can learn from other people. I feel like there's a lot that you can gain, a lot of experiences. I mean, hell, you can go out one night and learn so much about one person, or experience a whole new different aspect of whatever that you would never have gotten if you keep your circle small. And it's incredible in its own right to be able to do that, to keep your small circle, because some people just have that mentality of just cutting things off and letting bygones be bygones. Short and simple. Some people have that mentality of just ignoring this other person, this bitter rival that they decided to lose interest in, that they decided to lose contact with. And I think that's pretty cool. You know, I do really think that's cool. But I've always been somebody who's really kind of emotional in a way. And I'm not talking like tearful emotional, like really in over my head, kind of like the typical, like really crybaby, not crybaby, but like, let's say if you watch an anime and you have that character that something happens and they just start to cry really loudly. I've never been that kind of emotional. I've been the emotional where I can really kind of feel what other people are feeling, and then it kind of comes back to me. And I don't really think I can cut people off like that, because then I start to feel bad. Maybe it's not I start to feel bad for myself, but maybe it's I start to feel bad for them. And that becomes a little conceited, right? Saying it out loud, it kind of sounds like it's a little conceited, but I really don't want to lose anybody. I really don't want to lose these friends, these bitter rivals that I've gained, or that I've kind of come out of contact with, because they're still people that I really did care for, and there's still people that really probably do care for me. It's just really hard under the circumstances, right? Because everything that you're feeling doesn't mean that they're not feeling it. All it means is that you're not hearing it. And I'm going to bounce back to that idea of social media, because that makes it even worse, that you're looking at these people and posting, and these things that they're kind of putting out there in the world aren't really them. You know, you feel a certain way. You start to feel down and sad, and you start to feel maybe angry or really joyful, or really anything, really what it is. But the things you post don't reflect that. The things you post kind of really just reflect the nature of likes and showing people really what you're up to and how better you're doing. And at times, how much better you're doing than your bitter rival. Social media does really make it worse to kind of isolate yourself in a sense. You know, you can keep your circle small, you can make a group chat, but then you start to see what everybody's doing, and everybody's seeing what you're doing. And if you don't have that, more power to you, because it's a really great way to live without it, without that comparison factor, without constantly checking your phone and looking at these things. But those people that can really cut things off, they have this kind of unique nature to them, and that's something I really admire. Like I said, I couldn't do it. I've tried, and look what happened to me. I ended up becoming friends with this bitter rival once again. We ended up reconnecting. We went to, where did we go? We talked it over breakfast, I believe, over coffee and pastries, and we just settled our differences, and we kind of hashed it out, and now we're friends. And you just messaged me not too long ago, and I was telling them about my bread baking that I've been doing, about this podcast, updating them about this podcast, and it's just been great. They told me that they're getting into this fitness journey. They're really counting their macros now, and they're training, and I'm just so happy to hear it. But if I was somebody that could just cut it off and let it be like that, yeah, it would have been easier for me. Yeah, maybe I would have gone on with my life a little longer, and I wouldn't have those nights where I would kind of sit in my bed and wonder, what are they doing and how are they? And I'm worrying for them, because I used to be there and asking them all these questions on how they're doing. And whenever they had something wrong, I'd be there to help. But maybe the fact that I didn't just cut it off and let go is something that made it easier to jump back into it. made it easier to jump back into the friendship, because all these thoughts that I had in my head become thoughts that, well, now I can really put into perspective in you. Now I can really ask you and tell you and be your friend again. And that friendship that you gain, right, is really sweet in itself, because it becomes different. You spent this time apart with your friend that, well, wasn't your friend at the time. And now that you're back, it's a brand new friendship. And it's a friendship that maybe you felt obligated to communicate with in the past, but now you don't have to communicate anything with. Now you got used to feeling that you don't need to talk to them every day, that you can be friends without being on their shoulder all the time. And, in contrast, not really everybody's worth it. In contrast, not really everybody's worth coming back and being a friend again. Not really everybody's worth coming back into your life. So what I'm going to say now is unique to my situation. And if you have a bitter friend, a bitter rival, somebody that you really lost contact with, whether they hurt you, or maybe there was a misunderstanding, or maybe it was just better to talk about it in person, but you just couldn't, so text had to be the only method of communication. Everybody's situation is different. And if they wronged you in any way, you do not owe anybody that time, that effort, and your mindset into getting them back in your life. As much as you want them to be, as much as you crave their attention, and you miss their friendship, and you miss just talking to them and the moments you have, and let's say you have pictures in your camera roll or Polaroids or film reels, and you miss all these memories you've had with them, you ultimately do not owe anybody anything. You are your own person, and you've built up your own personality. Maybe it was based off them. Maybe they influenced your personality in a way, but their personality is not yours. They are not your person. You are your own person. And this bitter rival of a friend, maybe it was never meant to be in your life in the first place. When I came to the point where I was getting back this friend, it was in a moment where I was starting to realize, well, I don't need them. Our friendship breakup, in a way, was 3 months. And within that time, in the beginning, I would really kind of get in over my head and think and say, well, I need them. But during that time, I was also kind of building myself in this comparing nature. During this time, I was also putting these things that I would compare myself with and really start to make it my own. I was going to the gym a lot more. I started to build this podcast. I started to really boost myself in my career, in my nursing career. And at that point, when we came back into contact with each other, I was already set in, well, look where I am now. Look at how much I've gained for myself because I lost this person. This time that I spent apart, I've used it for me. And that's wonderful. That's the sweetness of the dark roast coffee. That's that flavor that if you look online and you say, well, what's the flavor profile of a dark roast? And they're all going to say, well, it has this rich, bold, yet sweet flavor. And that's the sweetness of it. That's the sweetness of this roast, of losing a friend. Is that this comparison and this competition you ultimately use for yourself. And you ultimately build yourself into being a better person than you were months ago or maybe a year ago, whenever you lost contact with this friend. Losing a friend doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Yes, in my situation, I gained them back, but if I didn't, I would have been just fine without it. If I didn't, I would have still built myself up to be this great person that I believe I am, or doing these big things that I believe I'm doing. And, maybe these people all my friends that aren't in my close circle, right? all my bigger circle friends and people that I've come into contact recently, maybe they don't think that what I'm doing is so great, that it's so grand, that it's just another friend doing another thing, another hobby. But that doesn't really matter to me, because I believe that I'm doing something pretty cool. And as long as I like it, then why should I stop? When you lose a friend and you don't gain him back, that doesn't mean you lost time. It doesn't mean that time that you spent with them was any lost moments of time at all, because you started to build yourself and you started to compare yourself to them and using these comparisons to be a better person than they are. And the worst part is going to be that you don't know where they are after a while, right? Because you lose contact with them and that's it. Maybe the people that you follow on social media don't follow this person. Maybe you don't have social media. Maybe social media doesn't matter to you. But losing contact with them in the end doesn't really matter, because that's one less thing to worry about. That's one less person to worry about. One less mindset, less and less of countless hours in your bed thinking in the middle of night what they're up to and how better you are without them and what you're going to do tomorrow to kind of one up them. Losing a friend isn't always a bad thing. Finding a bitter rival isn't always a bad thing. Because whatever you're up to compared to whatever they're up to, I just kind of feel like it's better to ask, well, why does it matter? So thank you again, everybody, for tuning into The Roasted Mind. This episode was a little more me, a little more experience, but I'm really glad that I got to share that with you. And I'm kind of changing up the format. I don't really want to do any more question or, topic and answers. I just kind of want to talk. I want to have these discussions with you just as you probably have them in your own head. So thank you again for sharing this cup of coffee with me. And I'll see you again next week. All right. See ya.